DREF President Carolyn E. Lewis, the Board of Directors, and the staff of the Delta Research and Education
outstanding work of our change agents and Dr. Johnny Cruz Craig, we worked on different topics, not just the normal thing. You know, we worked on culturally relevant teaching, social and emotional learning, trauma-informed classrooms, and the whole child, just to name a few.
In terms of what you all are doing and what it means to us and what it means to everyone, education is a foundational key. I think it was George Washington Carver that said education is the key to freedom, which is the tie and the link between education and social action.
Delta pushed early on that it's not just matriculating through a scripted curriculum that may not teach needed life and adaptive skills. We have been pushing through our gyms and other programs that you need to focus on educating the whole person so that our next generation has the basic life skills to navigate and adapt in now an even more demanding and unrelenting world environment.
Good morning, and thank you for joining the Georgia Dream Team. Today, I am here with Dr. Crystal Cooper, and we are excited to talk to you today about social and emotional learning. Yes, social and emotional learning is our first webinar that we will be presenting with a series of other webinars. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our batters up. So we are happy again that you are here. Please make sure that you have a cup of coffee, some tea, get your notepads out and your pens, and get ready to take some awesome notes. So let's get started, Dr. Cooper. right. What role can we take to ensure that all students in K-12 graduate or leave our schools as strong leaders, global thinkers, and positive citizens? This is something that we want you to just ponder over while we continue to move forward with all of the information that's relevant to social and emotional learning. And before we move forward, please, please, please share your video on Facebook if you are watching us through Instagram. If you are on YouTube, please share it out because we have some awesome information that we need to get out to everyone. Also, if you have not joined us, please join at the top of your screen where it says text. Join to 51555. You can stay in the loop with all of the information that we will be sharing with you. Okay, so we're going to move along. All right. We want to know who is in the room before we get started. So if you would just follow our little chart here, we would like to know how many teachers do we have out here in the building, instructional coaches, yay, school administrators, any parents out there. We can't forget about our counselors. So if any one of these, we know it applies to you somewhere, please let us know. Please let us know. And please don't forget to share.
So exciting to know who's in the room, isn't it, Cantrell?
Oh, yes, yes. Because a lot of times we don't have this opportunity to really have a conversation with others. I mean, we may see them in the building if we are around, and now we're virtual. We really don't get that opportunity to really see our instructional coaches a lot of times, the teachers, we're so used to seeing them in the hallways and waiting. But, now just to have that opportunity to really just see who's out there so we can get, information from everyone.
Yes, and I'm so excited. I just saw Valerie Morgan from Gwinnett County. So, how much fun we can have today, Lavetta, with, who's going to be from Clayton, who's going to be from Gwinnett, the north side, south side. So let's see who's joining us. That's always exciting. So thank you so much, Cantrell. It's really a great morning to begin this conversation. And in the midst of this conversation, we know that we're in a trifecta, right? We're in the midst of three major things going on in 2020. You've heard people say, we're going to make this year the best it can be. And we've heard people say, let's throw the whole year away. Mm-hmm. And we have to take these 2020, right? And try to find what we can through it all, because we know our students, our parents, our staff, they are all struggling through those pieces. So, we think about childhood trauma, those adverse childhood experiences, all of that ramps up, during this time. So with COVID-19, the racial tension that we have, and political unrest, all of those things are really making a major impact on the work that we do. So just before we introduce ourselves so that you know a little bit about who Cantrell and I are, we want to just set the tone with this quote. And what this quote says is that social and emotional learning is the process through which children and adults, they acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage those emotions. So what we want to really help students to be able to do is set and achieve those positive goals, feel and show empathy, which is one of my favorite words, for others, and establish and maintain those positive relationships while making those responsible decisions. And we'll have an opportunity throughout our presentation to talk a little bit more about CASEL and their work. But I just thought that was a great start, to the work that we're doing. So Cantrell, let's tell them what we're going to be working on today.
Okay, so today we're going to be working on 5 competency areas. Okay, how we are going to build strong teachers and students through SEL. So we're going to talk about our self-management. We're going to talk about self-awareness, responsible decision making. I mean, that is really, really all of them are important, but that responsible decision making, especially when it comes to students, just trying to make that positive choice in the heat of the moment, is something that we really, really want to work a lot with our students. Relationship skills is another one, and social awareness. And we will continue to talk about these things more in depth, but we're going to look at it on both the elementary side and the secondary side. So that's the good part about what's happening today with our webinar, because Dr. Cooper is going to give you a lot of information about the elementary, and I'm going to give you a lot of information where it deals with secondary. Okay.
Yeah, and I admire you so much. You know, I've always said that I will always be an elementary styled administrator and teacher. And I'm not afraid of middle school, but I think I fit well with exactly where I am. So thank you so much, Cantrell. I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. I am an elementary school principal. This is my 9th year in Gwinnett County Public Schools, which is, I would say, about 30 minutes from Atlanta, north of Atlanta. And this is my 23rd year in education. I actually began in Paterson, New Jersey in 1997 as an elementary school teacher, and I've been in Georgia now for 15 years. So a lot of the work I'm going to share, my base was from the Center for Responsive Schools, which if you've ever heard of Responsive Classroom, I've been doing that work since 1997. So for 23 years, social emotional learning has been a mainstay for how I teach and also how I lead. I've had an opportunity also to learn many things through the Learning Forward Academy, where I'm a graduate, and I also continue to do work for SEL and culturally responsive teaching. So just thinking about the work that is most important is that when we think about, this work in that lens, it lends itself to what it looks like in reality. So when I think about my district, we have a large district. We are the largest district in the state of Georgia. I presently have about 800 students at my building, and it's a diverse community. So I have EL students, about 30%, special ed students, about 20%. Gifted is 7%, and my free and reduced lunch, which is another word for economically disadvantaged. I like to use that word a little more because we definitely don't want to judge students by how they eat, right? So when we think about poverty and we think about all of those pieces, all of these things pull in. And so just a very diverse school. You can see here I have about almost 20% of Black students, Asian is 6%, Hispanic is 42%, multiracial is 6%, and my white population is 29%. So when you look at my school as a Title I school and the most northernest school in the district, we are very diverse, and it really helps our students to get real on the road experience about being in diverse communities. So Cantrell, let's hear about you.
All right. Well, welcome again. I am Cantrell Gibson Brown. I am an academic coach at in Clayton County. This is currently my 21st year in education. I started out in Florida. I was in Florida for a little bit, moved to Georgia, actually had the opportunity to go ahead and teach internationally, which I loved. So been working with the Delta Teacher Efficacy Campaign program. That's how we started out. Then we moved on to Teachers Advocating to Lead Great Change, which is TAG. And we are still in the work of supporting education and making sure that everyone knows about new policy, things that are in play to make sure that all of our students are treated and receive everything that they should receive, as well as teachers. So we don't want to ever leave them out. So I am just enjoying it. I love education. I love middle school, secondary is for me. I tried that elementary, and didn't work out for me that way. So I realized that secondary is definitely for me. Now, middle school, not saying high school, but middle school. So, again, I'm in Clayton, and I enjoy it. I love it. Our district, we have piloted social and emotional learning for the entire district to get everyone on board with this important matter that we have. Okay, so as a district, we just strive to continuously create a culture of proactive awareness that assures a positive climate for all of our students and employees. So we make sure that we are SEL within ourselves and we practice SEL. So it should come out from your heart. Okay. So it shouldn't be something whereas you're forced to do it. So we are promoting that. We practice this every day, all the time with all of the 5 competency areas. And we'll talk a little bit more, as I stated before, throughout the presentation, how we do things a little differently when it comes to middle school, as well as how it may look in elementary.
Yes, and it's important, I think, Cantrell, to think about the differences from elementary, middle, and even high school, in thinking about your schedule and how the students go from one place to the next. So I think it's going to be very telling how we tell that story.
Exactly. All right. This quote right here was just something that really, really just stepped out to me. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Again, something that's so powerful. A lot of, I try to explain to individuals or just people in general. Education is a heart matter, as Dr. Johnny Cruz Craig has always stated.
Yeah.
So it has to stem from the heart. So everything that we do with education, it has to come from the heart. Don't worry about the pay, because it's something that you're doing from your heart. It's a passion. You have to love it. So whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that our scholars reach their next level, it should stem from the heart. So this is why I love this quote, and it's just something that reminds me all the time. Everything that I do is stemming from the heart when it deals with education and the scholars that I encounter every day.
Yes, that is so true. And I think when we think about that, with our students, it'll help us make really great academic decisions too. So let's hear a little bit from some folks. We are curious about some things, right, Cantrell?
Yes, so please just take a few minutes in the chat box. Please go ahead and answer these 3 questions for us. What are some of the challenges that our children are facing now? What are some challenges, that our parents are facing? Because we know our parents are facing some tough challenges right now. And what are the challenges our schools and teachers are facing? Because we're all facing a lot of challenges. So please just take a few minutes to just go ahead in the chat box, just respond to these 3 questions, because we truly want to know what are those challenges, because our challenges may be a little different than what you may be experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think we'll continue to look at those comments to all of our participants. We're up to about 35 folks in our group right now. And so you're coming from all different places and all different experiences. So we certainly want to hear from you as we move forward. So we're going to dive in now. We've had an opportunity to set the stage with you, and you will see that Cantrell and I have 2 different experiences, but we have one blended approach to what we know about social emotional learning. And let's face it, we've been doing and we've been living out social and emotional learning in many different ways. And so one of the most poignant data sets that I just was able to hear, Cantrell, was that only 29% of students who are in our schools feel like they're in a caring and encouraging environment. And that was just very striking to me, because when you think about the fact that perhaps, right, I always use that word perhaps, 70% of our children are coming to school where they don't feel connected. And I'm so curious about the data that's going to come out of, our COVID experience too, right? And just what that's going to look like, because we have children that I know in my school that have had like tears in their eyes and joy, because they're back in a caring and school environment. So we know that social emotional learning really is the lever where children can begin to know who they are, be in a happy and healthy environment. But one of the things that I've learned through my work is we cannot assume that they know. We can't assume that our students really know how to apply those social emotional learning skills that are life skills, right? So that's why our audience, we invited everyone, because this is an educational based philosophy and pedagogy. But what I found, and Kentrell, I know you have too, is that if we can share the base at school of how to treat people and how to help students regulate their emotions, they will naturally and organically take that out into the community. So we want to really preface that there is a side of doing social emotional learning, and then there is a side of being social and emotional learning. So we want to really take ourselves through that process this morning and just remember those two words. How can I do social and emotional learning, and how can I be a social and emotional learning advocate?
Awesome. And that's so important, Crystal, that you made mention of that, because a lot of times we get that a little confused.
Yeah.
With the being and with the doing.
Yeah.
So this wheel kind of helps us, and it can help us to have a better understanding of the two. So we are going to be discussing self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. When we talk about the social awareness portion, that is something that is within us as far as our self-awareness. For example, we know that when we come into a building or we come into a room and someone is there, we should automatically say, hello, how are you? Or we see someone we haven't seen, you know, earlier that day, you speak to an individual. You don't go ahead and say, oh, I'm going to turn down the other hallway or go another way because I don't want to have that self-awareness of just being polite. But that's something on the inside that we have to realize that it's a natural feeling. When it comes to the self-management piece, that is more so, again, when we talk about our scholars, and a lot of times they may have some disagreements with another student, just knowing how to control behaviors, to more so say, you know what, Miss GB taught me about breathing techniques. So instead of me balling up on the inside, the self-management piece of me, I'm going to go ahead and just breathe in, breathe out for about 5 minutes or so, however long it takes, so that I don't retaliate in a negative way. So teaching our scholars how to actually do these things instead of having a physical altercation.
That's right.
Social awareness piece, again, always just having that empathy for others, just knowing that everybody is feeling some type of way. Again, we're in this pandemic together. Some people have lost loved ones. Even I myself, I've lost my mom during this entire pandemic piece. So just having that empathy for people, and just knowing that a lot of times internally, a lot of individuals are feeling a certain way. It's not that they may be feeling mean or want to be mean. It's just that they have a lot that's on the inside. So sometimes just doing a check-in. Hey, how you doing? How's the family? Are you okay? I'm sending you a virtual hug. You know, I love you. You know, just saying that sometimes that goes a long way. Just sending somebody a little card, and you've written in that card, I just want to know how you're doing today. You know, I thought about you. I want to see how you're feeling. So I put this card here for you. That right there just lights up a person, because it's something that small that really help that person a lot, because you don't know what may be going on during that particular moment. And that ties into the relationship skills as well. Having that, building those relationships with individuals where sometimes they will feel that it's important, you know, for them to even try to come to you, or just to say, hey, I need some assistance. Responsible decision making, that ties in too with the self-management, especially when it comes to the scholars, even with adults as well. You know, sometimes we don't always make the best decisions, and sometimes we have to, you know, okay, let me take a step back. Or sometimes someone may say something to you and they step on that baby toe, and you know how it is when you hit that baby toe. You really may say a few words that you shouldn't, but sometimes people make you feel that way. So just making sure that we use responsible decision-making answers before we just impulsively just jump out and just say something that we shouldn't. Okay.
That is so true. And, you know, when you started talking about relationship skills, I thought about the power of handwritten notes, you know, something that I do in the beginning of my school year is I write a handwritten note to every single staff member, which my hope is that that will also exude to the teachers and to the classrooms, and it has. So again, you know, that word model and social emotional learning, you're doing it all the time by your actions. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about actions, Cantrell. I took some time just to create this, I call it like a board of sorts, just to segment our work. And I know in our district, we have really seen the power of every single person having an action. And so when they commit to those actions, it allows us to have one base where we can begin to move forward and actually achieve our goals, because that is the ultimate piece. When we go back to what our question, our teaching point is today, it's really about academically raising children that will be able to be independent and that will be able to do great things in their future. And so we just don't want to equip them with the academic and technical skills, which a lot of companies say our kids have. They just are not having the skills to be able to apply in reference to how to get along with each other, how to collaborate, and how to, as we say, agree to disagree in conversations. Because when we make it to the boardroom, right, we want to know how to navigate and code switch and know how to have the affect that we need. Exactly. So just some things I want to highlight very quickly with you all as a leader. So those of you that are leaders in your school, and I say everyone, but if you're in the position of a principal, assistant principal, instructional coach, you have to make that commitment to professional learning with social and emotional learning work. Because there is content that you need to learn and practice as you deliver this work out to your students. So it's important too that leaders are communicative with all their stakeholders, so that they know the process, because, you know, parents will still, you know, they'll begin to see different children. They'll begin to see that we aren't reacting with going to in-school suspension. We aren't reacting to clips anymore with when we help students. And some parents still want that. They want that clip. They want that call when children are misbehaving. And what we have learned through this work is that even still, you know, when we think about when I don't know, and you know, Chip Wood, the author of one of my favorite books from Yardsticks, he says, if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them. If they don't understand how to play a piano, for example, we teach them. If they don't know how to play math, we go ahead and teach them. But when it comes to discipline and they don't know how to stay disciplined, we punish them. And that cannot be what we say and do. We have to teach them those discipline skills, just like we teach them all the academic skills, because they are connected. So when we think about that work, we have to make sure that our stakeholders understand that. And that comes with modeling and practice. It comes with reviewing the vision, incorporating that culturally responsive teaching, and remember my little comment the other day with you, Cantrell, about the fact that the word discipline, the actual word comes from the Latin root word disciplina, and it means to teach. It does not mean to punish. So those are just some things we really need to keep in mind. And then I tell my teachers all the time, you know, we have something in the work that I do at Responsive Classroom, and it's called To Go Slow, To Go Fast, where we spend the first 6 weeks of school, 6 weeks, being able to go through the actual procedures, expectations, find out our children's hopes and dreams and the things that they need to go forward, and just how that's going to work for them. And that really helps our kids to learn. And so when we think about those things, we're creating a positive classroom environment. We have strong academics. We're focusing on proactive measures instead of reactive measures. So, you know, when I speak to you and my audience, our proactive should be this big. Our reactive should be this big, right? Because we put so much emphasis on the proactive side of discipline and how we teach students, because again, we're assuming that they don't know, and not in a disrespectful way, but we're saying, hey, let me show you the expectations so that it limits my response on the back end, which is that reactive side. And then as teachers, my language, my verbal and nonverbal language is positive. Because again, if I can use my way, my students, then that will really help in a big way. So just in closing, we're going to have those morning meetings. We're going to also cherish the spirit of forgiveness, right? Because we're going to make sure that forgiveness doesn't start at 3:10. Forgiveness starts as soon as that child makes that mistake. We teach them how to adjust, and then we move forward. And we don't hold that. And that's why I love this work, because I've seen teachers go home with a knot on themselves because they're upset about a move a student made. But they understand that that child is learning. We don't go home upset about reading and math mistakes. So we should also not go home upset about discipline mistakes, because they're equal. It's just that we have to teach them. So in that, our students will be able to set goals. They'll be able to have more leadership opportunities and learn to mastery and be able to reflect on their work. And then in turn, that all of that work turns into our community, where we have that willingness to engage them. We're able to help people observe themselves and become SEL experts, helping them to also go slow to go fast, and also having that time to truly reflect on those personal and professional needs. So when I think about this question has been very, very indicative of how I see teaching and learning. It's something that I think is very powerful, is the fact that we need to look at a child and say, what is this behavior telling me? Right?
Yes.
So, if I see you rolling on the ground, if I see you getting frustrated at 11:10, if I see you getting, very upset when you work in groups, I'm not looking at Cantrell, the person. I'm looking at the behavior that Cantrell is exhibiting, because the behavior is what I need to own, right, Cantrell?
Exactly.
So, this quote that says, every time you think of calling a kid attention seeking this year, consider changing it to connection seeking and see how your perspective changes.
Yes.
Isn't that powerful?
That is so powerful, Crystal. And there's an article that I share with the staff, and it talks about, it says what the behavior tells me. And it's an awesome article. And it goes into all of the various behaviors that we may see our scholars actually display. And once you read that article, it really changes your mindset, because as you stated earlier, a lot of times individuals may look at the behavior and it's like, oh, here we go again.
Yes.
It's time for them to get, written up. It's time for them to go to in-school suspension. But do you really understand why the behavior is happening?
That's right.
Really dive in to understand this particular child. There's something that's going on to make this individual, make the student, behave the way that he or she is behaving. So instead of, as you stated, punishing them for something that they really don't even understand, it's just them showing their actions because they don't know another way of presenting, what the problem is. We haven't taught them how they need to let us know. So this is the only way that they can react.
Yeah.
But it's not what we should be doing as far as a punishment, but you have to understand and know, why is this baby acting the way he or she is acting? Something is triggering the behavior. So as the educator or the administrator, let's get to the bottom of it and let's help the baby.
That's right. Very, very true. And, I say here to really make sure we build in those proactive strategies on the front end. And that means, I'm going to talk a little bit more about getting to know our students a little later in our presentation. But, we have to own this too. And, we sometimes think, oh, wow, this child should know better. And they're in 3rd grade now, or they're in 8th grade now. And we're going to learn a little bit later today that, chronological age doesn't always match up with developmental age. And so just because I'm 13 doesn't mean that I act in what you think a 13-year-old should act. There's a lot that's impacting me. You know, I'm home. When I get home, I have to take care of my younger siblings. You know, my home life is very different. I may have some, you know, some things that that hit me that some other students, it may not be. So we have to make sure we're modeling and practicing with our students. So modeling the expectations of how to go get a drink of water, how to conduct ourselves during specials, how to walk to art, you know, how to wear our mask, right? And these days,
yes.
our mask, put our mask in our baggie before we eat lunch. I'm elementary, so that's what we're doing in elementary. You know, but it's all of those things. And I say so much about observing students and making sure that we take notes. You know, have a notebook with all your students. I know middle school, it's a little bit different, but you know, if you can create some type of an anecdotal notebook that has a, you know, the student's name and just things you're noticing about them, not just academic things. What time of the day? You know, I had a student some years back that he came into our little office to get a little break. And I noticed it was around like 12. And I said, okay, you know, I'll just say, James, for example, are you ready? You know, let's go get your lunch. And he said, I already ate my lunch. And I said, what time did you eat your lunch? And he says, you know, just like I think it was 10:30. And I said, okay. So I went back to the teacher and I said, tell me what time James usually begins to change his behaviors. And she goes, you know, I'm looking up. It's usually during writing and it's around 10:30. So I said, my goodness, you know, I said, he could be hungry, right? And he need a snack during writing time. Nothing wrong with kids having their bottle of water and their snack. And let's start thinking of moving the snack to 10:30. And what do you know? All better. So, you know, it's just those little observations that you begin to do. Look at the time of day, look at the subject where they start to get overwhelmed, and you'll get so much information from that. And sometimes I tell you, Kentrell, our kids are just plain old sleepy, right? They just rest.
They are. And, you know, and that's I love that example that you gave, because I too can actually remember just having a student some years back, and he was just, you know, some teachers were like, oh my God, he's here today. You know, and one day he just came to the room and, you know, he was just being himself, you know, and I just learned ways of dealing, you know, with the behavior, but not in a negative way. And then one day he just was talking to me and he just said, you know, I'm just tired. And I was like, well, baby, what's wrong? You know, and come to find out, there was so many siblings in the household.
Right. I have 12 in the household.
So it was 10 here. And mom, you know, had just had another baby. And it was like, well, I have to sleep in the room with the new baby and 5 or 6 other siblings, and I can't sleep because if the baby wakes up, I have to get up and I have to see about the baby. So this student was just so exhausted. But if you don't have these conversations and build the relationships with each one of your students, because I have had over 100 and something students at one time in the middle school setting, but you still have to know them individually. And that allowed me, you know, to work with this particular student, you know, differently. I understood now why the behaviors were happening. He was just tired.
Yeah, it's so true. And so, you know, we think about this work and we have to be social and emotional learning minded and also culturally and responsive teaching minded. And so, you know, I just wanted to always remind us that diversity is a fact, equity is deliberate, inclusion is an action, and belonging is an outcome. And those are the things we want to preface that. As educators and even as parents, we want to make sure that our students and our children feel like they belong, that they feel significant, and they also have an opportunity to have fun. And that goes along for the adults in the school with our actions and also for our students. So when we think about that, one of my very favorite books is this one called Yardsticks. Yours is in the mail, right, Kentrell? So, one of the things that we say in the work of Responsive Classroom is that we need to know our children in 3 ways. So we have to know them individually, we have to know them culturally, and we have to know them developmentally. And this is a proactive yet ongoing approach where we get an opportunity to know our students, and being able to do that. This book has been a mainstay. We're actually on our fourth edition of this book, but it's just filled with so many practical attributes, characteristics of what it could be like. So for example, you know, I'm going to go with middle school. How's that? I'm middle school kids. I'm not afraid, I promise. But for example, what it might say for a 12-year-old for physically in their development, it says they're very energetic. They need lots of exercise to rejuvenate their oxygen brains, and along with lots of sleep and food. So, oh my goodness, that speaks to what you just said. So when I know, you know what we, Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. When I know them developmentally, I'll be able to adjust. So when I see a child sleeping, I won't say, he comes to school all the time and he's always sleeping.
Exactly.
Then I say, oh, that's a development of that age group. Let me see how I can help them instead of punish them, right?
Exactly.
So it's just, this book is like my school Bible.
Yes, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, I promise. It's coming. So we do work in it every single year. So let me just dive into why this is important. It goes without saying, social emotional learning is compelling work. It's making a difference in our schools and our communities. And we're finding that our children are walking away with those better SEL skills. And the schools that implement this with fidelity, they actually have positive classroom behavior. And look at that 11% point gain on those standard achievement tests. Because even though we have our own opinions about standardized testing, we know that our children need to take standardized tests to get into college if that's their choice. So, we definitely want to do that. And look at how it benefits teachers, So teachers are actually being impacted by this work too, where they're able to possess those SEL competencies themselves. And we are retaining teachers where we're not constantly having to go out, because behavior and the lack of has been some of the reasons why teachers leave, other than not getting support. So when we think about that in the school system, look at how it impacts the community. We think about our work with kindergarten through young adults, and how it can positively affect their education, employment, criminal activity, substance abuse, and mental health. So 2011, there was a meta-analysis study, very, very strong study. And this is all from the work of CASEL, which has been a great place to go to for that work. But like I said, all those skills go up, conduct problems, emotional distress goes down. And these numbers, most recent numbers in 2017, we have so far 82 programs that have been reviewed. It impacted 97,000 plus students, and the age group between 6 months and 18 years. And again, it's still working. So even back from 2011 to now 2017 and more, it's making a real big difference. Teachers, right?
Yes.
They longer. So we think about the high levels of social competence after being able to protect themselves from burnout, because we've all experienced that, whether it's for a day, a month, a year. Teachers are the mainstay. They say the two most important people in education is the leader and the teacher. And I definitely believe the teacher is the one that makes that biggest impact. So with all that they do, it really helps them also to manage their own emotions, and also check themselves when they know they're getting upset, how to take themselves out of the situation, and how to really make sure that their emotions don't impact the culture of the classroom. So I know you've been doing some work with that too, Cantrell. So I'd love to hear you share your great work over at the middle school.
Sure. Okay. So in middle school, what we do, what I do more so at my school, is we start every faculty meeting, every collaborative planning meeting, any type of meetings that we have, we're starting out with an SEL. So this particular SEL is called I'm a Survivor, and it's really from the Rethink Ed, because that's one of the curriculums for SEL that we have adopted in Clayton County that we're using this year. So I presented my staff with the I'm a Survivor activity because, again, just like we stated earlier, students need that social and emotional learning piece as well as the teachers. With everything going on virtually, trying to make sure that technology works, it doesn't freeze up, your internet is together. We need something that is going to just break the ice. Trying to make sure, if you have your students with the cameras on, this one's not turning the camera on, somebody's coming in, somebody's coming out, just taking that stress off. So this was just an activity to actually do that. So basically the goal was for the teachers to get into teams, which I had already breaking everyone up in the Zoom. So we used this on Zoom. I sent everyone to different breakout rooms. So they didn't get the opportunity to say, well, you and I were going over here. No, I've already broken you up and I sent you where you need to go because we have to work together as a team. So they were broken up again. They had 10 essential items that they had to choose because they were on a raft. So they had to think of surviving the same way we're doing with virtual learning. This is all new for us, so we had to survive. So they had to pick 10 items to help them survive while they're on this raft out in the ocean. So it was so funny just to see what their responses were because they only had the opportunity, they only had 10 minutes. So when they came back, it was like, wait, we're not done. So they were scratching things off. They were adding more things. So it was just so funny just to see their results because a lot of them, I don't think anybody had chocolate as one of the items that was definitely needed while on the raft because it was like, what do we need chocolate for? Well, that's going to help you to survive as far as food is concerned because we don't know how long you're going to be out there. So they really, really enjoyed that. That took the that took the stress off of everything. And they really enjoyed it. And it was so great that a lot of them actually have used that with their own classes. So that was just one of the ideas or one of the things that we did. The next one that I did with the teachers was name that movie. Okay. So I gave the teachers 5 minutes. This was before we had our meeting last Friday. So they had 5 minutes to identify 25 movies that's in this picture. They had to be specific. So you couldn't just put, if it was Batman, you had to be very specific. Was it? Because they're all Christmas related movies. So some of them were like, oh my God, I know I had that movie. So just to see the expression on their faces, because I always try to present my teachers with some type of prize. I always tie a prize to it. So they're always looking every time we're having a meeting. Okay, GB, we got a prize, right? So yeah. Just to see the expression on their face, because that's helping them out on the SEL side. So that's a break from all the stress that they have been experiencing. So, of course, they had a prize, and it was like, I can't believe that I didn't win, but that was just really, really awesome. Again, I also do what is called a brain break. So we had to do a map redelivery because that's one of our assessments that we're using over in Clayton County. And during the training, you talk for so long, it's like, oh my goodness, when are we going to have a break? This is so long. So instead of individuals not focusing or just, getting tired, I would stop during the presentation. Okay, brain break, we're going to spin the wheel. So I put every teacher's name on the wheel. So we don't know who's going to win. And I normally do maybe about 5 names. Well, not 5 names. I spin the wheel 5 times is what I'm saying. And a person will win something. They don't know what they're going to win, and I'll just surprise them. It may be a Chick-fil-A gift card. It may be a Chipotle gift card. It may be a Amazon gift card. That's just something that I do because I just know that makes people feel great, and it also makes teachers feel appreciated more so every day instead of in March in May when it's once a week. So if I'm showing you that I appreciate everything that you do, that helps you out because a lot of times our teachers don't feel like they are being appreciated. So that's just something that I do at my school with my teachers as far as the spin the wheel, but we incorporate the other activities as stated earlier throughout, whether it's collaborative planning, whether it's a faculty meeting, whether it's a department meeting. We're going to have an SEL moment. And it could be something simple as, how are you feeling today? You know, just drop in the chat how you're feeling today. You know, whether you're feeling great, whether you're feeling tired, you know, we'll just take a few minutes, you know, just to talk about it, you know, give some suggestions, you know, take a stroll through the park, go just grab you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, close your laptop. If it's a Friday, it's time to close the laptop at 4:35, you know, take a brain break. So as you see here, these are just some of the things that we do as far as SEL is concerned. Again, we talk about the faculty meetings, morning meetings. We have digital learning, same thing that I mentioned to you, professional development, grade level meetings, whole school morning meetings, get staff involved to model and show concepts to others. So this is something that is truly great, because what we did at my school was we would have different teachers to actually present during faculty meetings as well. You know, give us the SEL strategy that you're using with your students, or to just break the ice, you know, so that we can just relax. Create context with parents and community for support. So this is something that is really, really big, especially when it comes to parents as well, because our parents need SEL as well. You know, sometimes, you know, they're not feeling their best when they tell you on the phone, I'm coming up to that school right now. So, you know, even when they come up and they're not feeling their best, just changing the way our tone is towards them, it changes their whole mindset, because if they see that you're not yelling with them, or they're not feeling like, you know, you don't think that they're important, they tend to change their voice and they bring it down. You know, it's just the way that we may talk to adults and parents as well. So we just have to remember that SEL is just like education. It stems from the heart and it comes from the outside. So a lot of times, you know, we may not feel that we need to, but if it's in you, it just comes out that way, regardless of the situation.
Yeah, that's so true, Cantrell. And, you know, I always tell my teachers there's power in the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, making sure that we do that with fidelity and make it important, you know, goes a long way. So, you know, we're in a time right now with everything going on where we can get to the point where we have compassion fatigue. It's a new word I learned by Figley that says it's a combination of the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual depletion associated with the work we do for others. So pastors can feel that, teachers, administrators, anybody who's in leadership or dealing with people, you know, even people that work in Walmart, you know, you can get to the point where you just have that compassion fatigue. So it's important to be mindful of that and keep that in motion. So here's just some examples I wanted to share. This is whenever we have new teachers come to the building, we have a adult morning meeting. So you see me there with teachers. We're having a partner chat, which is part of our greeting. And we just wanted to also share, Cantrell and I, with our that we want to make sure that your school exemplifies social emotional learning, right? Because we don't want to do, we want to be. So, you know, when you go back to your schools next week, you know, look through the hallways. Are there reminders of ways to continue? And this was just one of the ones we have in ours, be the reason someone smiles today. Mm-hmm. So as we continue to go through, I want to preface this. Children can be taught through modeling and coaching. I keep saying modeling intentionally, and I want us to understand we're not starting the day with SEL. We do SEL all day long. Yeah, it's how we interact. It's the practices that we put in place that are like the microcosms of what we want classroom to be. Mm-hmm. So when I look in morning meeting, when I look in advisory meetings for middle school, I can help children because they're all invited, regardless of what they did on the bus, right? Because it's a lesson. We don't take kids out of reading and we don't take them out of math because they've misbehaved. They need to especially be in those instances. So we want to make sure that when our principal calls the room, for example, that we don't say, oh, here she goes again. Yes, right?
Right.
We're actually modeling, yes, Dr. Cooper, how may I help, right?
Right.
So again, that modeling, your children are watching you, and it's just as we would expect our students to do at home, that they get that experience. So we want to just stop for a moment and remind you to keep sharing our presentation. We are coming toward the end, but we still have some really great nuggets. So please make sure you share on all of your platforms so we can still bring some folks in the room. But when we think about, Kentrell, there's so many programs out there now for social emotional learning. And I just listed here the top 25 leading programs according to a study that was provided by the Wallace Foundation. And some of them are curriculum based and some are not. And some are beginning to be curriculum based, where they do have an actual book that you open up that has lessons. Because just as we do the responsive classroom approaches at our school, we're also an operational PBIS school. So we do still use that structure in our buildings. But I do encourage you to continue to look at other ways. I know Atlanta, I think they do Second Step. And our district also has a platform that we're using with Nearpod that has a lot of different lessons, and our teachers have access to those all day long. And so it was a nice thing to begin a committee for our district in Gwinnett and also move forward with really putting social emotional learning pieces in place. And it matters. If you look at this slide here, it really talks about children are changing with this work. Their skills have gone up 57 percentage points. Their academics has gone up 27 with a school that did not have SEL practices. Their social behavior, look at their emotional distress, their attitudes and their conduct problems. So we know that this work works. It's just taking the time to find out which one does. So tell them a little bit, Kentrell, about your mindful meditation. I know that's powerful.
Yes. So with mindful meditation, what we actually are presenting with our students, as well as we may use this as an example with one of our faculty meetings or department meetings. So here the students will actually close their eyes and just breathe for a certain amount of time. Breathe in, breathe out. The video actually shows them how to do this, and the teachers as well. We also explain to the students, and again, this is the modeling piece. We ask them to close their eyes. Think about being on the beach somewhere. Think about being somewhere fun. Maybe it's at the amusement park, going back to Six Flags, and just visualizing themselves maybe on a roller coaster, just enjoying themselves in that moment, and actually just breathing through, thinking about nothing that's related to the pandemic, taking all of the negative vibes away. Even when we're doing this with adults, the same thing. If you want to visualize yourself being on the cruise ship on the Lido deck, visualize that.
I do.
So this particular video, again, it shows and it models as well for the teachers and the students on how to actually do that. And it only takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So it's very short, but this is just something just to show our students how to breathe. And it's just so funny sometimes, because I have seen in the hallway where students, before the pandemic, they would get into an altercation and they would literally say, no, remember Miss GB said to breathe with me. Let's close your eyes, just breathe with me. So it really helps, because that student that was about to get into an altercation with someone else, it has helped because it's calming them down. Okay. Now we also have the teacher and the school, the mindset change. A lot of times changing the mindset can be very hard sometimes, but with practice and with all of these new techniques that we have out here, I love both of these examples here, but the one that's over to the right with the two eyes and you have the hands, if you look at this particular picture and you look through the lenses of the students and not through your lenses as an adult, your mindset should change. Because we don't want to continue with the same old mindset of this is the way I've always been doing it. This is how it's supposed to go. They better get it. No, we have to look through the lenses of the students because, again, we don't know what our scholars are going through. So we have to take that opportunity to look through their eyes, open up the window and the sliding glass door to step in to their minds and to help them to grow as scholars. And if that means we have to find out what's going on socially before we can move on to the learning part, this is what we have to do. Because if not, it's not going to ever change. So we want to make sure that we work on that. And with that being said, for the middle school side, and I can speak especially from my school, we no longer have in-school suspension, which is awesome. So when my principal brought that to the staff, you could only imagine what was actually going on, what you can hear in the room. How is that going to work? No in-school suspension. But my principal did the research and her SEL was amazing that day. And it actually worked. So instead of having in-school suspension, we call it the mood room. So when a student is having a emotional breakdown or they're getting ready to get into something real serious with another student, we have someone in the mood room, and that student or the two students, they'll go separately, of course, into the mood room. In the mood room, we have mats, we have balloons, we have calming music, and we have journal writing where they can actually go ahead and express how they're feeling. Nobody's going to judge you. So if you use some type of words, that you shouldn't use, it's okay, because we're going to ball that up and we're going to throw that in the trash because that's old. So at that time, this is where the students are able to, if they want to go ahead and just bust a balloon, go ahead and do that, because that's going to help them to relieve that stress. And it has helped us tremendously. If they want to get on the mat and roll around on the mat, they can roll around on the mat for that particular time, but someone is in there to monitor them at all times. And we have the calming music that's playing in the background. So what happens eventually? The student just starts calming down. They just start calming all the way down. And then that adult that's in the room with them, they'll come over to the table and they'll have a conversation. What's going on? What happened? And they actually will talk to them and express why things happen that way. And then it's like, what could we have done differently? Let's write this down. Now, parents are called and we let the parents know what has just happened. And the first thing that parents will say, oh no, are you telling me they're about to be suspended? Are they going into in-school? No, we just sent them to the mood room. Really? Oh, okay. So the parents really like that because of the simple fact that if we put them in school, what are they learning? Nothing. It serves no purpose. So that was one of the reasons why we got rid of the in-school suspension, and our discipline rate really, really went down because our teachers are utilizing the SEL all the time throughout the day in their classrooms. So it really, really helped. Okay. So that's where we have here where the teachers practice the SEL strategies. And this is daily. We have trainings that go on quite often. Our teachers actually incorporate the SEL strategy into their lesson plans. So when you look at my teachers' lesson plans, you will see there's an SEL strategy that they're going to actually do for that particular day. It could be the mindfulness meditation. It could be the happy hands. So the teachers became very creative with it. And the students know. So on Wednesdays, it will be Wind Down Wednesday. So they knew that it was something creative that they were going to do. So it has really, really taken off in my schools per se, the middle school side, because we really, really push the social and emotional side. One last thing, even throughout our school building, if you were to come into our school, you can see that our school is an SEL. just about, well, not every bulletin board, but the majority of our bulletin board, it has some type of SEL on it. We had one that said, look through the lenses of a student, and we had various little mirrors that were up on the bulletin board. We had a bulletin board that said, you are beautiful, no matter what anyone tells you, and they can actually see themselves in the mirror. So just positive reinforcement throughout the school building helps build that SEL. So we are definitely providing that.
That's really important. I appreciate that. I've seen those mirrors too, Cantrell, and I think it's really powerful. Mm-hmm. So this quote really touched you too, that you shared with me, just about social emotional learning and how we develop our identities, right? And learn individual. Yeah, that's a really good, purpose for why we do what we do. So when we think about this work, and we're about to close, I know we are enjoying ourselves so much, because you can tell we're very inspired by this work, but we're going to start to now go down the hill to offer some last minute tips. So again, continue to share so that your colleagues and friends and people and family can also grab some of this last minute work. But we just want our students to reach their potential. And I saw a lot of people, Cantrell, mention in the comments that we need to know our students. We need to know them and really know them as people. So again, just another great quote here that helps us know about, people say, let's build relationships, but we really have to make sure we are also influential in providing that safe space for them to do that. Yeah. So when I first became principal at my school, I noticed my school at the time didn't have a specific discipline approach. So I had a meeting with them to decide what they wanted to do. And at the time, they weren't very interested in social emotional learning. They wanted to do clips. So, while it wasn't a personal process for me, I wanted my teachers to be able, sometimes you got to let folks experience things and then learn another way to really have that intrinsic motivation to change. So all of my teachers, they're expected to be at their doors, and I'm sure a lot of schools have that practice. And we also make sure that there's that developmental understanding, meeting with them to decide what they wanted to do. And also making sure that we have those energizers and those brain breaks throughout the day, just like we do digitally, to make sure that that happens. Rules should be developed together. We talked about modeling, but we also want to make sure that we're conscious about the positive community, our academic focus, and really making sure that we have managed settings. We have a lot of fun in elementary school, Cantrell. We dress up a lot. We dress up today, honoring the 9/11 victims on Friday. We have surprise events. We have a connect a little bit with Falcons. So sometimes I'll have some Falcons, folks come and people from the high school come and surprise our kids in their rooms. We want to, it's fun. We want to create those spaces. And just like you have a mood room, we have the same. And then we have closing meetings at the end of the day where we just touch base and we say, okay, and we're doing it digitally too, where we say, how was your day? What are you going to try to do better tomorrow? Either write it on a note, let's throw it up like a snowball, let's read. What are we going to try to do better instead of just get your book bags, let's move, let's do that, because we want to make sure that we close the day positively. And our language, we want to make sure that we have nonverbal cues when we're helping children adjust and make sure that they can be redirected and reminded. So just an example of a morning meeting, we use the responsive classroom approach at our school. And I always want to preface, all students are invited because it's a lesson. Children have an opportunity to be greeted. They have an opportunity to share something, whether as a group or individually, and get questions and comments, because then that shows people that you're significant. So I'm learning how to listen to your comment, whether you went to Lake Lanier or you had an opportunity to go to the racetrack. I want to hear those stories, and then I'm going to give you feedback. And then we have just fun. We have just like 5 minutes or less of a fun activity. Sometimes it's activity based. Sometimes we're just saying Zoom and eek around a circle so kids can laugh at the beginning of the day. And then we have a message, right? We talked about that, the power of writing a message to students. They read it, they engage with it. So this is an example of a chart where it just says a chart even to to speak to our students and our families, like on a parent-teacher conference night. Dear families, I'm so excited about kindergarten. I hope that you are too. Please add your sticker below. Are you the oldest child in your family? And, you know, the age ranges are very helpful in getting to know a little bit about our children too. But this is just something we encourage you all to do. And some other techniques that are really powerful. I have 2 books, Cantrell, that I have loved. One of them is called The Behavior Code by Jessica Minihan. And she gives some practical skills for our trauma-informed children. You know, we have kids that have really been affected by trauma. And we need to have the skills, instead of saying, let's send them to special ed, as we all know, we're identifying even African-American boys and Black children specifically in those special ed environments. So we could dismantle those actual factors, making sure that we proactively have some skill sets to be able to help them. So there's a turtle technique, which is a metaphor of the child holding themselves, breathing through their nose and engaging. That's another nice technique. A nonverbal transition cue for a student that you and the student can have. And then having their peers. That's kind of part of that restoring the power again in the room, where they have peers in their classroom that help them. That's really important. And so, you know, hey, we're doing hybrid. I tried to do a lesson last Friday. I tell you, if my teachers wanted to rate me, they could have rated me needs development and ineffective on some parts of it. I tell you, it is not easy, friends, when you try to do hybrid experience, right? But SEL is there. So we wanted to remind everybody, you know, there's a great book. Again, I'm a book reader, but if you don't have this book, I think originally we bought it for $48 and now it's $28. I'm not getting any backing from this, but I just love Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey. John Hattie has even written in this book, and it's called The Distance Learning Playbook. And when I tell you, this book has been one of my favorites navigating through this work. And we'll put more of that in our resources page. But what I'm telling my teachers, Cantrell, is to bring them in the room. So if you have a hybrid situation where you are teaching synchronously live with your children, you have your live kids in the room, there's nothing wrong with having those Zoom kids stay on the tray. You know, so I'm really working patiently with my teachers that we don't shut the SEL kids, the digital kids, virtual kids out during the day, in the room, you know, so that there isn't more inequities, because we know this situation has caused inequities, but we don't want to continue to substantiate them by not allowing our children to be in the room. So have fun with them. I had a red boa on when I was teaching my writing lesson. Humor as much as I can. You know, elementary is a little easier to be funny. But just some great activities. You know, you want to woo your kids. You want to make sure you're greeting them. And again, that opportunity to plan with your staff and be sensitive to the home environments too, Cantrell, because, you know, teachers are saying, make sure your video's on. I need to see your video. But do you know there's some children that are in very unique spaces? You know, some of them may be in a space that they are embarrassed of. Some of them may be in a space where people are walking all around them and interrupting and babies crawling and all kinds of things. And because many of us are in that middle class mindset where we think we have desks, we have all our stuff ready for us. It's not like that, Cantrell, for everyone.
It is not. And that's so important that you mentioned that, because that's just something that I say all the time. You know, everybody's situation is totally different, and let's respect that, and let's just be mindful of it. So yes, that's very important. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, we just got to really make sure that we give them that opportunity for a choice. So, you know, Cantrell, this work isn't easy, right? We know we have and some consideration. So what has been, I know we've been working in SEL a little longer, but share just briefly what, and we have probably about 3 or 5 minutes to close before we open up for questions. Okay. So let's just share really briefly what, you know, and how we navigated through those challenges and considerations.
Well, I know for middle school, one of our challenges was, you know, when we started talking SEL, and how to change your tone and our mindset and letting it stem from your heart and not just out your mouth on the impulsive side, it was more so, that's not going to work. I'm not getting ready to do that. If they yell at me, I'm yelling back. So just practicing and trying to change the way they think and showing them examples of it really works. And then when they started seeing that the students were actually taking the information and they loved what they were doing, it was always, okay, today is SEL because we have a curriculum that we were actually following, but now it's just more of a natural side. You know, the teachers don't have to work hard or pretend. It's starting to be more natural. You know, I don't have to raise my voice, or I don't have to react the way that they're giving me negative feedback. Let me stop, let me breathe, and let me change my tone before I actually respond back. So that was one of the big challenges for us. Last year, we were the only middle school in my district that piloted the SEL program. So now the entire district is SEL. It's like, oh, wow, we've been doing that since last year. So now it's really, really easy and everyone's loving it. And we always think about, again, SEL with everything that we do. And it's more so now you have more individuals always speaking to each other now. Good morning.
Right.
How are you?
It changes everything. Your whole culture changes, doesn't it?
Yes. So that was just something that was one of our biggest challenges that we had. And then outside of the no in-school suspension.
Right.
So, now everyone is really seeing that, in-school suspension really didn't work. And we utilize our move room. We don't have to use it too often. Well, now since we're out, virtually. But even when we were in school, we really didn't use it too much because the teachers were trained on how to diffuse the situation before it even escalated.
Yeah, that's so true. And it all comes with changing mindsets, right? We're changing mindsets from children have to pay for their misbehavior through punishment, through how can I teach them? And I was privy in my district. We're starting a great professional learning. And there's a wonderful video on YouTube called Be Willing to Be Disturbed. And what I love about it is it really teaches us, especially as we get into anti-racism strategies also, and also, culturally responsive teaching. We're going to be disturbed. We're going to be disturbed from what we know and what we've organically practiced before and how we were taught. And, that's another thing when I work with teachers, you are breaking strongholds of how teachers were taught. I was taught that way. I turned out fine. But then we always respond with, well, what was the cost? And what was the cost of that? And, we want to make our experiences different for our children. So we want to lure our parents in. We want to communicate with them. I call parents more than email them. If I email them, it's my second choice.
Right.
To, confirm something or send them something. But, just getting on the phone and saying, how are you and the family? How is John doing? How is William doing? And speaking like that first, and also, making sure that we create office hours for our parents, and we're flexible, but we also have that measure of accountability. And something I tell my teachers a lot too is when you're talking to parents, and even they've begun to do it, is when you're giving feedback, instead of saying Crystal is doing well, but she can improve in her math, we can say, Crystal is doing well, and I'm helping her with her math skills, and would love if you could also join in.
Love it. Love it.
Because if everybody's holding for the butt, but if you are able to say and, everybody relaxes. And we know it. We call schools and they're like, what did Cantrell do? What's she do? Right. We want to pick up the phone, right?
Right.
But if we change the culture where they're more apt to that, when a call comes from the school, it's going to be a pleasant one. It really helps with that. So tell them really quickly, Cantrell, about your equity of voice experience with your speed dating concept.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what we did at our school last year, we did, just like Crystal said, speed dating, but we called it speed grading for our parents. So what we actually did was we had our teachers to set up appointments with parents. So we did this during our PTSA time. So we tried to make it a little different because a lot of times, Our parents, I know at my school, they're not really going to show up. So we wanted to change it up a little bit. And we came up with the speed grading. So the teachers set up appointment times. So the parents will come. They came all into the cafeteria area. We had it set up really nicely. And they would meet with all the teachers on the team for about 5 minutes. So what happened was the teachers had the students' grade reports, and they would quickly go over it. And it was really, really quickly because everybody had more so like a minute and a half to say what they needed to say. But if they wanted to have a more personalized conference, that was the time that they would set it up with the team so they can come back during the school day to have another meeting. So then the bell, the little buzzer would go, ding, and then it was time for the next parent to come up. And they would also give them their grade report and just give them a little spiel about their child. Now they couldn't, go into depth because again, it was only like about 5 minutes. In between that time, we also raffled off little gift certificates. So my parent liaison is really, really big with building strong relationships with our partners. So we gave away like Red Lobster gift cards, of course, Chick-fil-A, Amazon. So it was so amazing because we had never had that many parents at one time like we did for the speed grading. So the parents more so, they came out of curiosity. What's this speed grading? Is it like speed dating? Yeah. So that we had so much feedback, positive feedback. It was like, okay, so when we're doing the next speed grading, and this was from parents as well as the students, but then COVID came. So, we're planning to do it again when we get back to the school. But it was just awesome. And that was a great way of having that communication. It built the SEL. The parents loved it. It was like you thought about us. You put it in the afternoon where we could actually get here because we started, I think, like 6:30. So a lot of parents were getting off from work. And then it just made it more meaningful.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you might, be able, Cantrell, to still do that in Zoom on breakout rooms, So, yeah. And I have more parents connecting with us now through Zoom than, in person. So we are closing, and we just want to leave you with some big pictures in mind. There's a plethora of school data still in our buildings. And so we want to continue to look at those inequities of academic performance and even discipline consequences. What is the data telling us? And how can we begin to shift our mindsets to continue to get buy-in from our staff and really try to move forward with making a decision for how to implement or ramp up the use of SEL. The data is going to be helpful to us with our decision making, but we have plenty of support and resources. You have us. But you also have plenty of digital resources that we use to prepare for today. When you think about visible learning, the book that visible learning in reference to just the effects of school. And I tell you, John Hattie's work, he talks about the biggest effect size of improving learning. It is what the teacher thinks about the child and how they view the child. Oh my goodness, that has the highest effect size of 1.21. And so that is so powerful that your teachers aren't having implicit bias. They aren't, or they're working through it because we all have bias, right? But we're working to shift that implicit bias because implicit bias also tailors to discipline where that social emotional learning falls into. So Rethink Ed was what Cantrell spoke of. The responsive classroom work is where I spend a lot of my time. Practical Benefits of SEL by CASEL. So if you go to the CASEL website, you'll get a lot from there. There's a huge report at the Wallace Foundation that speaks to this. I love Edutopia, and we also, you can follow them on Instagram, as well as Responsive Classroom, Rethink Ed, all of these, or CASEL. They have all great little quick social media attachments. And then finally, Harvard has done a lot of great work, with SEL. So we've spoken about our books, but we also added, I tell you, boy, Nancy Frey and Douglas Fisher, I need to get it. They are on it, aren't they? So have a book called All Learning is Social and Emotional. And I know you've got that in your school. And then, again, I can't tell you enough, get on the Responsible Classroom website or even on Amazon and get yardsticks. And then I had the pleasure of hearing Jessica Meehan at a conference, and I have 2 signed copies by her. And so she's pretty amazing. So let's take it away.
All right. Before we depart each other, you guys leave us, please, 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 we have a survey that's strolling down at the bottom. We would love, 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 love for you to give us feedback on our presentation today. We will have several other presentations that will follow along after this particular webinar. I think our next webinar is going to be on technology. And I know that with everything that's going on currently, you know, with the virtual setting, the hybrid setting, just to know, you know, some new ideas that are out there. So please, please, please join us at Join Tag 251555. If you haven't already done so, please complete our survey that's strolling down at the bottom. Continue to follow us on Facebook at Georgia Dream Team. Also follow us on Instagram at Georgia Dream _tag. Okay. The picture that you see in front of you, this is the rest of our wonderful team here. So if you ever need to reach out to either one of us, we are always available for you. We are also located on our Facebook page as well as our Instagram. So please, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Again, I am Cantrell Gibson Brown. My information is here for you, as well as Dr. Crystal Cooper. She's available on Instagram as well as Twitter, as well as on our Facebook page. It was such an awesome time with you guys today. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and start answering those questions. What should a school do right now that is struggling with what discipline and or SEL approach to seek?
Yeah, and I would say really doing your research and visiting. You know, we had an opportunity in our district. We went to Atlanta Public Schools and met. They have a very strong team in Atlanta as well. And we went and visited schools and had an opportunity to really get into the room. And I think it's vice versa. I'm going to come out to your middle school and see what you all are doing.
Yes.
You know, as well. And I think that's just the most important. I think one of the theories of experience, the experiential theory is very important in people learning. So when people get to experience it, I think it helps.
Yes.
And you just have to make a choice. You know, you just have to say, this one is, you know, a good one for us to start, and get feedback and input from your staff, because they're the ones that are going to be doing it, right?
Right, that's right. So definitely having that conversation with them is very, very important. Okay, so that's another thing to just think about. And as Dr. Cooper said, coming on over to the middle school side just to see how things are going. And I too am going to take that opportunity to even come over to the elementary side to see how things are actually going. And just to bring the two together to see how we can probably intertwine some things and perfect what we're already doing.
Very true. So let's see. I want to make sure everybody keeps also with the event survey. That's going to be really important to give us some feedback. And this question here says, as school leaders navigate through this work, what should they keep in mind? And I think of my place as a principal. You just have to have patience, and you need to be visible. I think you pick up on a lot when you're out in the trenches with everyone. And oftentimes I say empty-handed. I walk through my classrooms and through my my hallways just to get a pulse and to get a tone, and it helps you to be able to go to the next piece of your professional learning and what is needed. And it's all about modeling. If you are out about, you can pick up on things, and you can also be proactive. But in the meantime, continue to be patient. There's times right now teachers are overwhelmed, and things that I used to, I wouldn't say tolerate or not tolerate, I'm so much more empathetic now. It was the other day I saw a teacher. I had turned around really fast, and the teacher was talking to another teacher, and she was just doing like this, right? And it's typically not part of our culture.
Right.
I'd be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Is she okay? But I said, Crystal, people are stressed out, girl. You need to let these people be, and that'll be fine there. So,
and I think that's important as well, because again, even as an academic coach, I myself, I check in on individuals all the time. I even check in on my principals and assistant principals. That's just something that I do all the time. Are you okay? Are you good? Because principals have a lot that's on their shoulder. They have a lot that they have to carry because they are the leaders of the school. So just being mindful that, we have to do check-ins on them as well, and just being that model for everybody. So that's awesome. What tips do we have for a new SEL learner? Patience, just getting in and just actually doing it. You have to dive in. Don't be afraid to take it on, and practice. I've never met anyone that didn't practice, that didn't get things the way that they should be. So just continue to practice and don't be afraid. SEL is something that you're probably already doing and you don't even know it.
I'm glad you said that. It's who you are, right?
Exactly.
It's your core. Exactly. And so my last parting words is, it's not what we do, it's who we are. SEL is who we are. And so at the minute we hit campus, we begin our SEL modeling, right? Well, it's been a joy, everybody, being with you.
Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. Please don't forget to join us. And please do not forget to complete the survey, and we will see you on the next webinar. Mask up, stay safe, and batters up.
Yeah.
We gotta fight against them, but we need numbers. We need to show up at school board meetings. We need to show up at county commissioner meetings. We need to have someone on the agenda to talk and know what they're talking about to advocate.